Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's go.
We've got a really specific, almost laser-focused mission today. It's all about what you can do under a pretty strict creative constraint.
It's minimalist power, really.
It is. We're looking at your setup, just two machines, the Korg Wavestate and the Electribe 2S.
Right. But the real key, the thing that changes everything, is that constraint you've set. You're recording your performances live, straight to audio.
No external sequence.
No safety net. It's you, the machines, and the record button. You are the clock.
And that immediately puts a huge amount of pressure on the Wavestate, doesn't it? The Electribe is probably handling the drum backbone, the immediate rhythm.
Sure.
Which means the Wavestate can't just be a synth you play chords on.
Yeah.
It has to be its own multi-part, constantly changing, non-repeating engine for melody and texture.
It has to generate all its complexity internally. That's the whole game right there.
Yep.
And that's the core insight for this deep dive. When you take away the external sequencer, you are literally forced to use the deepest, most interesting parts of the Wavestate's brain.
You have no choice.
None. So we're going to be looking for the Tools Wave Sequencing 2.0, the layers, the vector controls that let you create dynamic change from inside the instrument itself. It's about making the synth the conductor.
With only two hands and zero chance to edit later.
That's the challenge.
So let's start with the absolute foundation. How does this one machine pretend to be an entire band? This is what we're calling the foundation of live performance. Performance structure and setup.
Right. And at the very top of that, you have the performance hierarchy. You have to think of a performance as your entire song, or at least a whole section of it.
Yeah.
Inside that one performance, you get 4 totally separate, independent synth engines. The Korg calls them layers A, B, C, and D.
So in practice, for your setup, layer A could be a deep sort of pulsing bass sequence. Layer B might be a big atmospheric pad. Layer C could be some kind of rhythmic gated thing.
And layer D is your lead line that you play over the top.
Yeah.
All from one keyboard, potentially from one key press.
And the performance level, the top level, that's where the master controls are, the things that glue it all together.
That's exactly it. That's where you find the master effects, like a global reverb or the master EQ, which is basically your final tone shaping before you record. And crucially, the vector envelope.
The thing that automatically mixes between those 4 layers for you.
Right. We'll get deeper into that, but it's a key part of the automation.
So if we drill down from that performance level, we see just how nested this thing is. Each of those 4 layers is basically a whole synth.
It is a complete synthesizer voice.
Yeah.
Inside each layer, you've got its own independent arpeggiator, another rhythm generator you need when there's no external clock.
Okay.
And then you have the program. The program is the heart of the sound. It's where you choose the sample, or more importantly, the wave sequence. It's also got the filter, the amp, all the modulators, and 3 of its own effect slots.
3 per layer.
3 per layer. Pre-FX, mod FX, and delay. So that's 12 effects running before you even hit the master effects.
That's a massive amount of sonic density from one machine, especially when you only have 2 machines in total.
I thought you make it sound huge.
Okay, so you build this incredibly complex patch. But for someone recording a long, continuous live take, you can't be menu diving to find the next sound.
Absolutely not. It has to be instant.
Which brings us to quick access and organization. This is the gigging musician's friend. We're talking about set lists.
Set lists are your performance manager. Simple as that. You get 64 slots broken up into 4 banks of 16, A, B, C, and D.
And they map directly to MIDI program changes, 1 through 64.
Right. So you can call them up instantly. But there's a really important nuance here in how the Wavestate handles the data, and it's perfect for your tweak it live approach.
Okay.
The set list itself doesn't actually hold all that massive performance data. It's just a pointer. It points to the performance that's saved in the main database.
Why does that matter so much for someone improvising?
It's all about the saving process. When you select a performance from your set list, the machine loads it, but it creates a new local copy in what's called the editing buffer.
Ah, so it's not the original.
It's not the original. So you're 3 minutes into a jam, the vibe is right, and you think, you know what, the filter on layer C needs to open up. You can just reach out, grab the knob, and do it.
And I'm not destroying the patch I spent hours making.
You're touching it.
Yeah.
You're only affecting the sound that's playing right now. If you hate it, you just reload the performance and you're back to the original state.
So that save local copy idea is what gives you the freedom to improvise without fear. You can chase an idea, twist a knob, change a parameter.
And you never have to worry about corrupting your core sound library mid-set. It's like sketching on a transparent sheet over your finished painting. You can add whatever you want without ruining the original.
That's a fantastic analogy. Okay, so we've got our sounds organized. Now let's talk about making them sound huge. We need to compensate for the fact that we're not multi-tracking. This is all about voice management and density.
Right. This is where a minimalist setup has to deliver maximum impact. You start with the basic voice assigned modes. Poly for chords, mono for basses and leads.
Standard stuff.
But inside poly mode, there's a little detail that's a lifesaver. Single trigger.
It sounds kind of technical, but I have a feeling it's really important for keeping things clean.
It's huge. Imagine you're playing a fast synth line. In a normal poly mode, every time you hit the key, a new voice won't trigger while the old one is still fading out. You get this muddy, slightly out-of-tune overlap.
Yeah, it can get messy really fast.
When single trigger is on, hitting a note instantly silences the previous voice before the new one starts. It forces the sound to be clean, tight, and percussive.
Which is exactly what you need to cut through the rhythm from the electric.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It maintains definition. But for the real weight, the real density, we have to talk about unison voices.
This is the density engine.
This is it. You can stack up to 16 voices for every single note you play. This is your primary tool for turning a single digital sound into a wall of sound.
And the control goes beyond just stacking them. We've got detune and thickness. Let's break those down. Detune is just the spread.
Yeah, detune from 0 to 200 cents is just the general amount.
Yeah.
How far apart in pitch the stacked voices are. Simple.
Okay.
But the magic, the real character, is in the thickness parameter. It goes from 0 to 100.
And that controls asymmetrical detuning.
That's the key phrase, asymmetrical. At 0 thickness, the detuning is perfect, it's symmetrical. It sounds like a clean digital chorus effect.
A bit sterile, maybe?
Can be. But as you increase the thickness, the detuning becomes irregular, random, chaotic. It starts to introduce the subtle beating and drift that we associate with old, vintage analog synths.
So you're basically using the digital engine to perfectly replicate the beautiful flaws of analog.
Exactly. For your live setup, a layer with unison on and a high thickness value instantly sounds more organic, more alive, and much, much bigger. It adds a perceived density you desperately need when you only have 4 layers to work with.
That's fantastic. Okay, so the Wavestate has one keyboard, but in this setup, you need it to function like 2 or 3 separate instruments, which means we have to talk about zones and transposition for splits.
If you've only got one set of keys, you have to make every single inch of it count. The basics are keyboard zones. You can set a high and low key range for each layer.
So bass on the bottom 2 octaves with layer A, lead on the top 3 with layer D, simple split.
Simple split. But the real expressive power, especially for a live recording, comes from the velocity zones and the crossfading.
You're talking about H fade and L fade.
High fade and low fade. These let you create a seamless crossfade over a huge range, up to 127 semitones.
So instead of a hard split where you hit one key and the sound just abruptly changes.
You can set it so that layer A gradually fades out over, say, 5 or 6 keys, while layer B is fading in at the same time.
That is crucial for flow in a live take. A hard split can be really jarring. A smooth crossfade makes the transition feel intentional and musical.
It creates a totally fluid soundscape. You can be playing a bass line with your left hand and have it morph into a pad as your hand moves up the keyboard.
And you combine that with the other layer setup parameters, right? The individual volume, the octave shifting.
Yeah, exactly. You can set layer A down 3 octaves for your sub-bass, then use fine-tune on layer C to knock it off by just a few cents to create a natural chorus against layer B. Then you use the key zones and velocity zones to mix between them dynamically just by how you play. It's 4 instruments under one set of hands.
That foundation is incredibly strong. Okay, now we're moving into the part that makes the Wavestate so unique for this kind of workflow, the internal brain. This is Wave Sequencing 2.0, the internal sequencer for live generation.
This is it. This is why the Wavestate is the perfect synth for your setup. See, old school wave sequencing, like on the original wave station, was pretty rigid.
Everything was locked together, right? The sample, the pitch, the timing, it was all one step.
All one step. If you wanted the sample to change slowly, but the rhythm to be fast, you were out of luck.
Yeah.
Wave Sequencing 2.0 breaks all of that apart. It separates everything into independent lanes. You have a timing lane, a sample lane, a pitch lane, shape, gate, and a step seek lane.
And this is the core of it all. Each of those lanes can have a totally different length.
And its own start point, its own end point, and its own loop points.
Yeah.
This is the breakthrough for a live improviser.
It's that classic polyrhythm generator. If my timing lane, my rhythm, is looping every, say, 7 steps, but my sample lane, the timbre, is looping every 12 steps.
Then the combined pattern of rhythm and timbre won't repeat itself until 84 steps have gone by.
So you get this incredibly long, evolving pattern that never feels repetitive.
And those ratios are always shifting. It's how the wave state generates this complex, evolving material without any external clock. It's a collection of asynchronous clocks all running against each other under the hood.
That's already a huge source of complexity. But for live performance, you need to be able to inject a bit of chaos. Human unpredictability. So let's talk about injecting randomness and variation.
The number one tool here is step probability. You find it on a few of the lanes, and it's just a simple percentage from 0 to 100. It's the chance that any given step will actually play.
So you could program a really complex, busy rhythm, but then set the probability on half of the ghost notes to, say, 30%.
And suddenly that rigid pattern becomes this organic, stuttering, improvisational thing. The main groove is there, but the little details, the accents, are always changing.
That's perfect for a one-take recording. But what about the failsafe? You don't want it to just stop if it gets unlucky.
And it won't.
Yeah.
This is a brilliant bit of performance-focused design. If the system skips 2 steps in a row because of their probability settings, it will always play the 3rd step.
Even if that step's probability is set to 0?
Even then,
Huh.
it ensures that the rhythmic momentum never completely dies. The chaos has limits, which keeps it musical.
Okay, so that's for rhythmic variation. What if you want to completely change the musical content on the fly?
For that, you use random order, you hit Shift, and Note Advance. When that's on, the sequence stops playing 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead, every time the loop repeats, it shuffles all the steps between your start and end points into a new random order.
Whoa. So if I have a 16-step melody programmed, turning that on gives me a brand new, scrambled but related melody every 16 steps.
Instantly. It's a massive textural shift you can use for a breakdown or a bridge or just to inject total surprise into a live set. It's like cutting up your melody and having the machine instantly recompose it for you.
And you mentioned the wave sequence utility functions. You can actually edit the sequence live.
You can. You can cut, copy, paste, insert steps.
Yeah.
You can even use scale timing to globally speed up or slow down all the steps at once. It encourages you to think of the sequence data itself as a performance element to be manipulated in real time.
This is so much more than just a playback engine. Okay, let's talk about the flow. The thing that makes it sound organic instead of robotic, timing and crossfading.
The timing lane is incredibly precise, and it caters to both rhythmic and ambient styles, which is important. If you have tempo turned on, your durations are all rhythmic values. Quarter notes, triplets, 30-second notes.
So it locks in perfectly with your electribe.
Perfectly. But if you're doing ambient work and you want the wave state to just drift, you turn tempo off.
And then you're setting durations in raw time.
In seconds, all the way from 0 up to 10 seconds per step.
Okay.
This lets the wave state completely detach from the grid and evolve on its own timescale. Perfect for those long atmospheric recordings.
But when one step transitions to the next, you need to control how that happens. You don't want a sudden click or an abrupt change.
And that is the entire job of crossfade, or X-fade. It's the amount of time the synth takes to smoothly fade from the current step's waveform into the next step's waveform.
So for a percussive sound, you set it to near 0.
Right. For a smooth evolving pad, you might set a crossfade of a second or two. This is the parameter that turns an abrupt step sequencer into a fluid, morphing texture.
And you can even control the curve of that fade.
You can. You have fading out shapes. You can choose linear, which is a straight line, or logarithmic and exponential.
Why do you need different curves? What's the practical difference?
It changes the perceived energy of the transition. A logarithmic fade, for instance, fades quickly at the start and then slows down. If you use that for both the fade in and fade out, you get what's called an equal power crossfade.
Meaning the volume feels constant.
Exactly. The transition is almost imperceptible. It's ideal for making these huge, seamless, constantly shifting textures that can sustain interest for a whole long-form performance.
The level of detail is just incredible. Okay, so we've defined the motion. Let's look at the actual musical content, the sample and pitch detail in the sequence.
So the sample lane is where you pick the sound for each step. You've got your basic trim for volume, probability, all that. But the real creative weapon here, especially for you with only 2 machines, is the fixed pitch parameter.
Right. This sounds like a simple on-off switch, but it's a huge creative tool.
It's massive because it lets you completely subvert the intended use of the sample library. By default, A piano sample will transpose up and down the keyboard,
Sure.
and a drum head sample is usually fixed to its original pitch. But this parameter lets you change that for any sample. So you can take a beautiful vocal sample, turn fixed pitch on, and now you can trigger it all over the keyboard and it stays at the same pitch, like a percussion hit.
And the opposite is even more interesting. I could take a rhythmic drum loop, turn fixed pitch off, and suddenly I can play that drum loop melodically up and down the keyboard.
You're turning percussion into a synth oscillator. It massively expands your sonic palette without needing to load any new samples.
And then in the pitch lane, we need to talk about harmonic control. Especially if I'm using random order, I need to make sure the results aren't just a mess of notes.
And that is exactly what the fit the scale function is for. It's an intelligent harmonic governor.
It locks everything into a key.
A key and a scale. And we're not just talking major and minor. Korg put in a huge library of scales. Arabic, Palog, Pythagorean tuning, well-tempered.
So I can set the key to, say, C, the scale to Hungarian minor,
Yeah.
and then let random order do its thing.
And every single note the wave sequence generates will be perfectly in key. You get all the excitement of unpredictable melody, but with zero risk of hitting a wrong note.
It's controlled chaos.
That's the perfect description for it. It gives your generative music a beautiful, complex harmonic structure automatically.
Okay, that covers the internal automation. Now let's talk about actually playing the thing, the
Yeah.
physical interaction, real-time performance controls, and expressivity.
And we have to start with the big one, the vector element, that joystick. It's basically a four-way crossfader for your four layers.
It's the performance hub. It's sending out MIDI CC 16 and 17.
Right. And when vector volume is on, moving that joystick physically changes the volume mix of layers A, B, C, and D. You can push the bass and lead forward, pull the pads back. It's your real-time mixing desk.
But the real power for a minimalist performer is that you don't even have to touch it. There's the vector envelope.
The vector envelope automates that entire process for you. It's a 5-point envelope that moves the vector point around that XY grid over time.
And you can sync its movement to tempo or have it run freely in seconds.
So you can design a complex 20-second long crossfade between all four of your layers, and all you have to do is press and hold one note. The sound will then mix and morph itself completely hands-free.
Which frees my hands up to control the electribe or tweak other knobs.
Exactly. But here's the clever part. The physical joystick always acts as an offset to whatever the envelope is doing.
Ah, so it's not one or the other.
It's both. If the envelope is automatically moving the sound towards layer D in the corner, you can grab the joystick and manually pull it back towards the center for a moment to create a bit of tension.
So you have automated movement with a manual override for expressive in-the-moment changes.
You're always in control, even when it's automating itself.
Beyond the vector, there are all those knobs, modulation sources and mod knobs.
The modulation system is huge. You have all the standard stuff: velocity, aftertouch, pitch bend. But the most immediate tools are those mod knobs.
And there are a lot of them.
You get 8 at the global performance level, and then 8 more for each layer.
So that's 40 knobs in total.
40 knobs. And each one can be a macro control. You can assign one knob to control, say, 3 different parameters at the same time.
So I could have one knob on layer B that when I turn it, it increases the filter cutoff, shortens the amp decay, and adds more reverb send.
All at once. It turns complex sound design changes into a single intuitive gesture, which is exactly what you need when you're trying to perform and record simultaneously.
And we can use our actual playing technique as a modulator too, right? This is key tracking as a modulation tool.
And this is way more advanced than a simple filter opens as you go up the keyboard. On the Wavestate, you can set up to 5 different breakpoints across the keyboard.
Low, mid 1, mid 2, high.
And then you define 4 different slopes between those points. So you can create these really complex, non-linear responses.
So I could have the filter open up really dramatically in the low end, then stay completely flat through the middle octaves, and then maybe close down a bit at the very top.
All just based on where you play on the keyboard. It's a way of embedding complex timbral changes directly into your performance technique.
Ah.
But the really wild part is the extreme slope settings.
Plus and minus infinity.
Yeah. What do you think happens when you set a slope to infinity?
It must be an instant jump.
An instantaneous jump to the maximum or minimum value over the space of a single semitone. It's not a slope anymore, it's a cliff.
So you can create a hard switch-like change just by moving from one note to the next. It's like a split, but for modulation.
It's another way to get dramatic, instant shifts without ever touching a menu. It's all in the playing.
Okay, we can't forget the other internal pattern generator, The arpeggiator.
The ARP is essential. While the wave sequence is doing the really complex, evolving stuff, the ARP is for your more immediate classic rhythmic patterns.
And the latch function is critical here for the hands-free workflow.
Absolutely. You play a chord, hit latch, take your hands off the keyboard, and the pattern just keeps running. It frees you up to work the joystick, tweak the mod knobs, or control the electribe.
And you have all the essential musical controls. Resolution for speed, octave range, and a really wide swing parameter to get the groove just right.
Right. But the really insane potential comes when you combine the arpeggiator with the wave sequence.
How do those two interact?
There's a wave sequence parameter called note advance. If you turn that on, every single note that plays, including every note generated by the arpeggiator, advances the wave sequence's start step by one.
Wait, so if the ARP is spitting out 16th notes, it's forcing the wave sequence to jump forward at a ridiculously fast rate.
And the resulting pattern becomes this incredibly complex, fluid, stuttering, and almost unpredictable rhythmic interplay. The ARP is driving the sequence in a way that creates results you could never program deliberately.
That's generative music right there. Okay, so we've built our sound, we've got it moving. Now for the last step before it hits the recorder. Final sound shaping and mastering prep.
Because there is no post-production, the effects on this machine have to do all the heavy lifting of mixing and finishing.
And the architecture is set up for that.
It is. You have the 3 per-layer effects, pre-FX, mod-FX, delay, and then the 2 master effects, master reverb and master EQ.
So you can put a nasty distortion on your bass layer's pre-FX slot while keeping your pad layer clean with just a nice chorus.
You're essentially mixing 4 separate tracks inside the synth before they even hit the main output. In the pre-FX section, you have amazing tools for this. The guitar amp models are great for adding warmth and grit. The wave shaper is brilliant because it reacts to how hard you play.
And for dynamics, to even things out before you record.
You've got great compressors. The red compressor, especially, is perfect for gently leveling out live chord playing so you don't get sudden volume spikes in your final audio file.
Then in the mod effects slot, we're talking about texture.
And there are some great tools here. The harmonic chorus is really useful. It only applies the chorus effect to the high frequencies.
So you can add shimmer and width to a bass sound without making the low end all muddy.
Exactly. It keeps things tight, which is crucial when you've only got a stereo track to work with.
And the delay effects. There's one that's particularly powerful.
The multi-band mod delay. This thing is just incredible. It splits your sound into 4 frequency bands.
Low, low mid, high.
And gives you a completely independent modulatable delay line for each band.
What's the application for that?
You could have a fast rhythmic delay happening only on the hi-hat-like frequencies of a sound, creating this shimmering rhythmic halo,
Yeah.
while the core of the sound has a much longer, slower delay.
So you can create these complex, layered echoes that are almost like a rhythmic instrument in their own right.
It's a way to add huge depth and rhythmic complexity from a single effect slot.
Wow.
Right.
Okay, and then there's the filter itself, the multi-filter advantage.
This is not just a simple low-pass filter. The multi-filter lets you mix low-pass, high-pass, bandpass, and the dry signal all at the same time.
But the real performance tool is the crossfade, the XED parameter.
Right. Just like the vector joystick, this lets you morph between 2 completely different filter settings, mode 1 and mode 2.
So mode 1 could be a gentle low pass, and mode 2 could be a really resonant, aggressive bandpass.
And you can modulate the crossfade between them with an LFO or a mod knob. It creates these deep, sweeping timbral changes on a single sustained note that sound like the entire texture is being reshaped.
And once all that is done, we hit the final stage, the master EQ.
Your last chance to shape the sound before it's recorded forever. It's a dedicated 4-band parametric EQ.
And the low and high bands can be shelves or cuts.
Which is absolutely vital for your workflow. You can use the low-cut shelf to gently roll off any sub-bass rumble from your layers, making sure there's clean space for the electribe's kick drum.
It's literally mastering the track inside the synth.
That's what it is. It's the final polish that ensures your live take sounds clean and balanced.
Okay, one last thing. Let's revisit that idea of chaos. Randomization as a creative tool.
The randomize button is a performance tool, but only because it's not completely random. It's intelligently designed to give you musical results.
But you still don't want to just hit it and randomize your entire song mid-flow.
No. And that's why the scope function is the key. You don't have to randomize everything. You can hold the randomize button and press just one of the layer buttons, or just the filter button.
So I can choose to only randomize the filter settings on layer C, or just the samples used in layer B's wave sequence.
Surgical chaos. You're injecting a moment of complete surprise into one part of your sound without destroying the whole structure. It's a calculated risk that can lead to incredible, unrepeatable moments in a live recording.
We have covered so much ground today, and it seems clear that under this kind of constraint, the wave state stops being just a synthesizer.
It becomes a fully autonomous sound generation system. The layering and wave sequencing provide the complex timing, the vector and mod knobs provide the expression, and the effects and EQ provide the final mix and mastering.
And what's really fascinating is that the constraint, no external sequencer, is what makes it so powerful. It forces you to engage with these internal generative tools. You have to treat the sequence engine itself as a live instrument.
You're not just playing back a pattern, you're interacting with a living, breathing digital architecture.
So, we'll leave you with a provocative thought to take away. We've talked about all this deep internal modulation and sequencing, but how might you fundamentally change the emotional arc of a single live take by using the global parameters? What happens if, in the middle of performance, you subtly use a knob to shift the global tune parameter, moving the entire instrument up or down by 20 or 30 cents? Or what if you've been working in a standard scale and you suddenly switch the global scale to something exotic like Pelog or the tritone scale? When the very rules of pitch and harmony subtly shift beneath everything, the listener's perception of tension and release is instantly altered, adding this unexpected, almost alien layer to your minimalist composition.